Good afternoon, everybody. Happy April Fool's Day, first Thursday of the month, first day of the month. I'm gonna wait one more minute and then we'll get started. But we see we have a good core group, and then hopefully we can kick off this Thursday meeting. And this is our abbreviated one. No deep dive today, but I suspect in the next few weeks we may have one or two, depending on developments regarding vaccine passports or updates on variants. I think we're reaching another point where there's going to be a lot of news and updates locally, and I think nationally and globally as well regarding COVID. So um, we had a nice little lull, but I think we might have some good updates coming up, hopefully. Okay, we will get started. Good afternoon, Andrew. Aloha, Corey. Hi, Debashish, Francis, Dr. Berryman, Jim. Good to see you, Dr. Nitz and Lee. Thanks for joining, everybody. I know we're in it for the long haul, and I appreciate you guys always making time to get updated and to contribute your knowledge and experiences. So I think what we're seeing on a global trend is certain countries and areas are seeing an uptick again. We had a good discussion yesterday amongst the core members trying to figure out what's going on, at least locally, but I think at a national and global level, with the vaccine efforts underway, some of the mindset might be one of letting down the guard, people traveling about more because of the cases being so low. So, once again, Japan, hopefully this is just um, just an anomaly, but, we're definitely watching the trend in Japan, especially as we draw towards the summer and the Olympics coming. I know they're being a lot more strict with who they're allowing into the country regarding foreign nationals. Looking at our overall country trend, while we continue to have positive news with vaccine efforts, I think we are trending up. It's not just a blip, and we need to continue to stay vigilant, at least as a country, even though we are well past 100 million shots in 100 days, and we're hopefully getting a couple more vaccines approved in the near future. We all know on this call how quickly things can spiral out of hand. Thankfully, Arizona, California, two of the historical hotspots in terms of states are staying relatively flat during this period, as is Nevada and Texas. And if you kind of look at where Texas is and also Nevada, you'll notice that their current levels are kind of where they were in between the first and the second wave. And we had this discussion again for Hawaii. At what point do we know, or how do we figure out what our just moving baseline is for COVID? Understanding we'll probably never get it to zero. So what is our new kind of normal in terms of circulating COVID cases without raising the alarm bells? Looking at our Hawaii metrics, we are all trending in terms of majority of the counties, except for Kauai County, all trending up. Maui is definitely up, just a big part due to community spread and that one church cluster. In terms of percent positivity, keeping things more relative, still under that 3% threshold. Maui has risen up in the past week. So just continue to watch that as foot traffic, and we see a spike in tourism or return to levels of tourism of pre-pandemic periods. We are firmly in 1 Charlie for our COVID vaccination administration and continue to love the updates to the metrics and the data visualization by DOH. I think it really helps people figure out what's going on. In terms of shots ordered and shots received, you can tell there's a little bit of a lag, but nothing too crazy. And then in terms of vaccine administered, doing fairly well in terms of getting shots in arms. And I think there's just some news that we're getting more doses. So definitely we are trending in the right direction in terms of getting shots in arms. Testing turnaround, I think this has been a fairly stable metric since December. So really not worried about that, and hopefully won't have to be worried moving forward, especially as the state lab and our partners have really found the right rhythm in terms of testing and getting those results quickly. For our HiPAM forecast, you notice that we're predicting an uptick. Once again, multiple metrics play a role in this. A lot of it has to do with just increased travel and loosening of restrictions, and just more intermingling. And while understanding that a lot more of the population is becoming vaccinated, there is still always a possibility for those who are vaccinated to get COVID. But I think the larger psychological impact is people, just letting their guards down, moving, going out to restaurants, going out to public. And, I think that's partially why we're seeing a lot of more community spread, especially on Maui. And that's what DOH is reporting. As a result, we'll start to see an increase in hospitalizations. But, once again, just keeping things relative, if we were to take a step back and compare this to where we were, in the fall, this is still nothing truly to be concerned about. I think that the message is now to keep things in perspective as we move forward to our reopenings, reopening our economy, and schools. What is the level where we're still going to be comfortable with some sort of circulating prevalence of cases and hospitalizations, and in our ICUs as well. So here's what we just presented in a numerical format. I don't see any questions yet, but please feel free to pop them in the Q&A or in the chat, or to raise a hand. So there's two major highlights. Obviously there's a lot, but trying to tease out the most relevant for this group, who kind of comes from all sorts of areas, which is great. I did add one update at the end. It popped up this morning, and I was able to grab a screenshot. But the two main ones that I want to highlight, one looking at interim vaccine efficacy of both the Pfizer and Moderna mRNA vaccines amongst healthcare workers and frontline workers. We're seeing more and more data being published, and this one was in the MMWR, that is providing real world data on vaccine efficacy. And I highlighted this one because it's from the CDC, and the other one is because of the population that they got the data from. We know that healthcare workers and frontline workers are typically at a higher risk of contracting COVID than the general population. So whatever, in terms of comparing results, that's typically better if they have low transmission amongst the vaccinated. And the other one, we are starting to get more and more data on safety, vaccine safety and efficacy amongst pregnant females, and slowly getting data on potential protection transmission to the newborn. And from personal experience, I think that's, I'm grateful that we have that data, as my baby girl is hopefully due in the next any day now. But I was happy to see some data coming out on vaccine efficacy and safety for pregnant and lactating females. So just some summary on this MMWR. Close to 4,000 healthcare workers, first responders, were tested weekly for 13 weeks. And under real world conditions, both mRNA vaccines, 14 days after the second dose, was 90% effective, regardless of symptom status. And also of huge import is that vaccine efficacy amongst those who were partially vaccinated, who got one shot or one dose, was 80%. So that's even better than what we were seeing in the phase 3 clinical trials. And I think what that suggests, and if I were just to go back to this particular slide, if you think about in Hawaii, the proportion of the population who has at least one dose, I think that with the updated information of 80% efficacy amongst healthcare workers, I think we should feel really good about the direction our state and counties are moving towards in terms of overall protection from the vaccine efforts. Once again, not understanding that vaccines are not a panacea, but as we vaccinate our high risk populations, our kupuna, and in the interval between first and second doses, we have real cases for optimism with updated information from CDC and other researchers that have published in other peer-reviewed journals. And then I wanted to highlight, this was in a AJOG, but while the sample size is relatively small, it does confirm prior safety results from phase 3 trials from Pfizer Moderna, whose females had become pregnant during the trial, but safety-wise, they did not find any differences in safety amongst those vaccinated, pregnant versus non-pregnant who were vaccinated, and also titers was significantly higher in the females who had the vaccine versus those who got it naturally during their pregnancy period. So a couple of good things that, and this ties into another paper that I did not highlight, but that came out this week, where if you are vaccinated or if you had recovered from COVID, data is starting to show that you are still gaining increased immunity or protection by getting at least one shot, even after getting and recovering from COVID. So this particular small sample size in this pregnant female population is starting to support larger generalizations that we're starting to make in terms of recovery from COVID, but still recommending getting at least a single shot of the vaccine. And then also importantly is initial data showing that possible immunity and antibody transfer to babies via the placenta and the breast milk. So once again, a strong push for breastfeeding in our new mothers. Finally, this literally just came out today, this morning, Hawaii time. This was 6:45 Eastern time. So Pfizer just released their 6-month data from their post 6-month data from the phase 3. I'm glad Andrew's here, who can maybe expound about this a little more, but basically no changes to the efficacy or the safety. So now that they have 6 months worth of data, they are now eligible and will most likely submit for full approval through the FDA. I'm not sure what the timeline is, but as soon as there's full approval, then that kind of changes some of the legal implications and applications of requiring, or at least for the military, will now be able to require the COVID vaccine because it is fully approved, and the service members will not have the option to opt out, and not sure how that's going to impact private businesses or even the state. But that is something that is coming down the pipeline. And another interesting note is they did have a sample of a study of about 800 participants in South Africa. And once again, while 100% sounds great, there were only about 9 who got the South African variant, but so far they all were in the placebo arm. So once again, we're getting more and more data in terms of current vaccines against the South African and the UK strains, understanding that Moderna and Pfizer are working on boosters to combat the variants. So with that, I will open it up for any Q&As, any burning questions regarding anything COVID. So Andrew, definitely thanks for that comment. It's great to hear a pharmacist's perspective. This is faster than obviously, like you said before, anything that we've seen before, and want to, as this happens, want to continue to emphasize with our friends and families and the public that just because it happened at this speed doesn't mean that the FDA is cutting corners in terms of safety and efficacy evaluation. Let's see, another comment from Jim. We know that the DOH can only go back on level when contact tracing cases at the So Jim's main point is the limitation in terms of contact tracing and really truly tracing back a potential community spread to travel. You're absolutely right, Jim. And we've discussed this with our DOH colleagues that with increasing gatherings and people eating out, it's so hard with the speed and the asymptomatic potential spread of COVID to truly trace back maybe beyond 1 or 2 generations of the transmission of a particular case or cases. And I think there's no best practice in terms of trying to account for that on the methodology. We try to, I think we're trying to utilize our technology tools. The Aloha Safe app, is I think a good example of trying to reduce the speed with which contact tracing occurs, or the response time. But I agree that probably some of our community spread is probably due to travel. It's just hard to trace it all the way back to a particular traveler because when you intermingle in places where you have you don't know the there's multiple strangers, some of who could be tourists. It's just way too hard to track because they're not going to be able to pinpoint and recall. So that's a really good point. And I think because of that, and it's so random, it's something we just have to account for as a limitation. And we give our best guess, and that's why we have so many models and the ranges. We give a best case, worst case, and somewhere between, just because there's no way to really pinpoint the true impact due to travel. But as long we just have to communicate that, you're absolutely right. Thanks for bringing that up. No, for sure. I think there will always be a desire to have decisions based on data. I think what we've seen is a necessity for the data to be communicated in a way that makes sense to policymakers, because most of them are not data scientists, and data can be, without the right context, can be kind of skewed. So it takes a village to really make that happen. I think we have the right people on board. It just takes time, like anything else. A question from Francis: what is the likelihood that some form of vaccine passport will be implemented in Hawaii and nationwide in the next month or two? That's a really good question, Francis. One that I probably not the best one posture to answer. I'm not sure if Dr. Berryman or anybody else in the community has a good guess. What I have been hearing, at least from the national side, is the federal government is not going to be the ones who are developing the apps. I think they're going to be the ones providing policy and guidance to make sure that data privacy is not is protected. But I don't think we're going to see something like the vaccine cards that were standardized by the WHO. Though I'm not sure why. This is just me speaking as an individual citizen. I'm not sure why U.S. is trying to create all these things when I know the WHO is working on this, and also in concert with the European Union. So to me, it would just make sense to standardize everything and just have everybody use the same thing. But that's just my perspective, and I know things are going to happen. It's probably going to, there's money involved as well. So thanks, Jim. Hawaii's governor, Ige 18th proclamation provides DOH or HiPAM to approve a plan. Correct. Though, once again, my perspective, it wouldn't make sense for the state to do something and then have to work extra hard to then sync it with all the other states or something that the federal government has approved. So I think it's going to, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I suspect in the US, we're going to have multiple apps or that are being sold to travel industry. And so I don't have a good answer to this one, but it's one that I think will continue to pick up steam. And maybe as we get more information, we can share it in a deep dive with their group, with someone who has a lot more knowledge in this particular area. But I think it's still too soon, at least from what I'm seeing on that's just publicly available. I'm no longer involved in the behind the scenes, but I'm sure hopefully we'll get something sooner or later. But that's a great question, Francis. Great point from Andrew. Not all vaccines will be studied in the same age range. That is absolutely correct. There will be an initial shortage of vaccines as we roll out to younger individuals, and each vaccine will need to complete their own trials, just like we did for the adults. I know that Pfizer is 16 and up, and I believe that most Pfizer and Moderna have started clinical trials in 12-year-olds and older, 12 to 15-year-olds. So we should, but they're all at different speeds. So maybe in a week or two, Andrew, when we have more fidelity in the information, it'll be good for you to update as our resident pharmacist on kind of where we stand for younger populations. I know that's a huge impact on our schools and our keiki, and what we're going to look like in the fall for university and just our overall education sector. Well, one last thing, if you've seen in the news the impact of the Janssen distribution or warehouse mishap, the only silver lining is that does not impact the current allocation. They were just trying to increase their potential impact, and I think that's going to set them back overall, but it's not going to impact any current allocations to any of the states. So if you're worried about that, I think there's nothing immediate to worry about. Awesome. Thanks for that. See, with so much information, it's hard to get it straight. So thanks for that clarification, Andrew. Okay, I'll stay on for about 30 more seconds for any last minute questions. Oh wait, let me see. Do we have more updates on the prevalence of variants? So Francis's question, do we have more updates on the prevalence of variants in the recent cohorts? Francis, do you mean cohorts of the clinical trials? Is that the cohort you're referring to? And you can just type that in the chat. Type in the chat if it's easier. I'm not sure in terms of the current cluster or the community spread, what the breakdown is of any of the major variants of concern. I suspect we hopefully will be getting the information a little sometime next week. It does take a little time to do the genetic sequencing. So if they did the contact tracing and the testing earlier this week, I'm hopeful that we'll get some information on the variants and whether or not they were variants of concern, the South African or the UK strain or the California strain or the New York strain. Though those are the variants of concern by the CDC. If they've made their way here, so no information yet, but I'm hopeful that DOH is choosing to take some of the samples from those clusters to sequence. Unless Dr. Behrman, you've heard anything otherwise. I haven't seen anything in open source.
Yeah, Thomas, I believe that most recently from the samples that have been done, that the California B1429 strain is predominant on both Maui and Oahu.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Janet. And once again, we the information that we know for this particular variant is relatively small in terms of increased infectivity or transmission or impact to vaccine efficacy. I think last week there was a preprint, and not sure if there's anything else out, but it is a vaccine of concern by CDC, but it's not at the highest level that the CDC has in terms of categorizing potential impact by the variant. So continue to watch, and I know this group is well aware that variants will continue to occur, and it's just part of the virus's life and what it does. But thanks for writing that, Janet. Okay, everybody. I just want to say thank you again for logging on and for your participation, your questions. I'm hopeful we'll have some major deep dives in the next month or two as we get more information on the vaccine passports, and we are thinking in terms of the modeling perspective how that might impact our travel, our case counts in the islands, and moving forward. So we are trying to figure out the best use of modeling as the situation continues to evolve, and we're thankfully moving from a reaction perspective and utilization of models to figuring out how best we can utilize modeling for a prospective and strategic usage. So I think that's a good thing. It just a little, it'll take a little longer to really iron that out. But I wanted to say thank you for all of you for your constant participation and support. You most likely will not see me on for the next couple weeks. Either Victoria or Tom will be leading the charge on our Thursday webinars, but please continue to stay safe and participate, and hope, ask those questions, because it does help us figure out the direction for HiPAM and how we can best support. But I will be thinking about you guys as I'm staying up late at night doing daddy duty. But please be safe, and I look forward to logging back on in about 3 weeks or so. Have a great Thursday, everybody. Happy April.